The vision of modern love presented to men was one of liberation. We were told it would be an upgrade from the rigid, often stifling dynamics of the past, a new era defined by partnership and true equality. The promise was that the unfair burdens, the traditional chains, and the expectations of silent, unrewarded sacrifice would finally be cast off. This wasn't just a shift in dating etiquette. It was supposed to be a fundamental rebalancing of the romantic scales where both parties contributed equally and benefited mutually. Men entered this new landscape with a genuine hope for connection that was both fulfilling and fair, believing that the old rules of performative masculinity were being retired for good. Yet, for countless men, this promise has curdled into a profound disillusionment instead of liberation. They find themselves in a system that has not discarded their innate instincts, but has instead cunningly weaponized them. The natural male drive to protect, to provide, and to pledge loyalty once the bedrock of building a family and a home has been twisted. These virtues are no longer welcomed as gifts offered in a mutual exchange. They are demanded as the baseline entry fee for mere participation. The man is placed in a state of perpetual audition. He's tasked with endlessly proving his worth simply for the privilege of a woman's presence. While she is often encouraged to simply exist as the prize to be won, this creates a brutal and exhausting imbalance. He is told he must be the unwavering anchor of stability, the planner, the pursuer, and the emotional rock. He must provide consistency while she is free to explore chaos. He must offer forgiveness for inconsistency while her impulses are often framed as self-discovery. The moment he stumbles under the immense weight of these one-sided expectations, the very system that placed the burden upon him labels him weak. The irony is so thick it's suffocating. A structure that preaches fairness is, in practice, a machine that feeds on his sacrifice. The modern dating market, far from rewarding his loyalty, actively punishes it, training women to see a man's devotion not as something sacred to be reciprocated, but as something disposable to be compared against an endless stream of hypothetical upgrades. This is the core of the broken promise. What was advertised as a partnership has revealed itself to be a rigged game, where his labor is the currency and her fleeting feeling is the judge. The exploitation of men within modern relationships is not a random occurrence. It is the result of specific, powerful mechanisms that work in tandem to create a rigged system. The most visible of these is the grand illusion of choice. On the surface, technology appears to have granted men unprecedented access to potential partners through dating apps and social media. But this is a mirage. In reality, these platforms have created a brutal asymmetry. Women, as the recipients of the vast majority of inbound attention, hold the power of selection. A man might invest hours of swiping and crafting messages to receive a handful of lukewarm responses, a process that breeds desperation and diminishes his perceived value. Meanwhile, a woman can open an app and be instantly validated by a sea of options, fostering an abundance mindset that constantly suggests a better, richer, or more exciting man is just one swipe away. This dynamic forces men into a perpetual state of competition and chase, which in turn teaches them that their value is conditional and must be constantly earned, never inherent. This external market pressure fuels a second mechanism, the crushing weight of compounded burdens. The modern man is expected to be a hybrid provider, fulfilling both traditional and contemporary roles simultaneously. He is required to be the primary economic engine, ambitious and financially secure enough to potentially fund not just his life, but hers and a family's concurrently. He must also be a sophisticated emotional caretaker, her therapist, her protector, her unwavering source of reassurance. He is told to be a rock, yet also vulnerably open, stoic leader, yet deeply in touch with his feelings. This emotional labor is a one-way street. While he is expected to absorb her frustrations, insecurities, and anxieties, his own emotional world must remain neatly contained. If he vents, he is a burden. If he shows pain, he is unattractive. If he asks for support, he is needy. He is, therefore, forced to internalize his stress, suffering in silence until he breaks under the pressure of carrying two people's weight. These dynamics are enforced by a third, insidious tool: the manipulation of language and guilt. The vocabulary of modern relationships has been skewed to pathologize male self-preservation and sanctify female impulse. The noble goal of equality is often wielded as a cudgel to create a one-sided entitlement, where his duties are expanded, but his expectations of reciprocity are shamed. His reasonable needs are reframed as character flaws. If he voices concern over imbalance, he is insecure. If he establishes a boundary to protect his energy, he is controlling. If he stops giving endlessly, he is neglectful. This linguistic trap ensures that any attempt to question the unfair structure immediately positions him as the villain. Consequently, the responsibility for the relationship's success and the blame for its failures systematically placed on his shoulders alone. She is unhappy. It is because he did not provide enough excitement or emotional validation. If she is disloyal, it is because he failed to make her feel fulfilled. This constant guilt conditioning keeps him locked in a futile cycle, trying to solve problems he didn't create, forever working to prove he is enough for someone who has been taught she deserves everything. The theoretical exploitation within modern relationships finds its most concrete and devastating form in the legal and financial systems that govern their dissolution. The ultimate betrayal occurs when the one-sided sacrifices a man makes throughout a relationship are not only disregarded, but are ultimately used against him in the event of a divorce. This is where the abstract concept of exploitation becomes undeniable, measurable reality. A man can dedicate decades of his life to a shared project, building a home, providing unwavering stability, raising children, and shelving his own personal dreams to prioritize the family unit. He operates on the ingrained belief that this loyalty and investment are building something permanent and mutually valued. However, the moment his partner decides her emotional state has shifted, often justified by the simple phrase, "I'm not happy anymore," the entire structure can be dismantled with brutal efficiency, and the rules of the game change entirely. The system, rather than recognizing his years of contribution and sacrifice, often legally formalizes the exploitation. Through the mechanisms of alimony and asset division, he is forced to continue providing for the very person who has chosen to discard his loyalty. She is entitled to a significant portion of the assets he worked to accumulate, the home he helped build, and an ongoing stream of his future income. This creates the perverse reality where a man can be financially penalized for years, even decades after the relationship has ended. His ex-partner gets to maintain the comfort and lifestyle his labor afforded, even as she moves on to new relationships, while he is left financially crippled, starting over from a severely diminished position. This is not a fair settlement. It is legalized punishment for having been the provider society. Far from questioning this imbalance, often applauds the woman's decision as an act of courageous independence and self-care. She is celebrated for choosing herself, while the economic devastation she leaves in her wake is ignored as an inconvenient byproduct. Meanwhile, the man is left to navigate the ruins of his financial life and the emotional whiplash of his reality. He is punished for the very devotion he was told was noble, for the very provider instinct the relationship demanded of him. The message is clear. His role was never that of an equal partner, but of a utility. He was the foundation upon which the family was built. And when the occupant decided she wanted a different house, she was given the legal right to take the foundation with her. This harsh outcome lays bare the true nature of the risk modern men are asked to take. It reveals that the social contract of modern love is not built on mutual security, but on a high-stakes gamble where he invests everything and faces catastrophic loss, while she retains the unilateral right to cash out and be rewarded for doing so. Perhaps the most sinister aspect of this dynamic is its invisibility. The exploitation is so deeply woven into the fabric of modern romance that it is often mistaken for love itself. It operates not as a series of overt demands, but as a slow, constant drain disguised as normal relationship effort. The constant pressure to perform is framed as being a good partner, The guilt trips for failing to meet an ever-shifting set of expectations are presented as heartfelt honesty about her needs. The subtle comparisons to other men, amplified by the curated perfection of social media, are sold as harmless motivation or mere observation. This gaslighting ensures that the man is never quite sure if he is in a dysfunctional relationship or if he is simply failing to measure up, keeping him trapped in a cycle of trying harder. This slow erosion has profound and corrosive effects on a man's very identity. He is conditioned to believe that the ultimate act of love is the sacrifice of his own self. He is encouraged to abandon his passions, distance himself from his friends, and compromise his core ambitions, all under the guise of being a real man who prioritizes his relationship. The tragic paradox is that this self-abandonment is the very thing that destroys the attraction he seeks to preserve. A man who willingly discards his own mission and frame to serve as a mere accessory to her life ceases to be the strong, independent individual she was initially drawn to. He becomes dependable but disposable, reliable but unremarkable. He gives everything, only to watch her walk away, not because he didn't give enough, but because in giving everything, he made himself into nothing. The entire system is upheld by a rigid double standard that governs freedom and accountability. A woman's choice to walk away from a relationship for any reason is frequently celebrated as a brave act of self-empowerment. Her independence is lauded. Yet, when a man makes the conscious choice to protect his own peace, to walk away from a draining dynamic, or to choose solitude over exploitation, he is met with a wave of social shaming. He is labeled cold, emotionally unavailable, bitter, or afraid of commitment. Her freedom is a virtue. His is a character flaw. This extends to grading performance within the relationship. He is constantly graded on a brutal curve of his performance. His earning power, his emotional availability, his physical fitness, his romantic effort. She, however, is often graded merely on her presence. Her fundamental loyalty, respect, and consistency are treated as gifts, not expectations, and a lack thereof is frequently excused with platitudes like "that's just how she is" or "she's working on herself." This imbalance guarantees that the man will always feel he is falling short, perpetually hustling for a reward that remains perpetually out of reach, blind to the fact the game was designed to ensure he could never win. The system of modern love operates on one fundamental, non-negotiable condition: the compliance of men. It functions only as long as men willingly play their assigned role, as long as they sacrifice without standards, chase without boundaries, and invest without first testing for character and reciprocity. This means the power to end the exploitation has always resided with men themselves. Liberation does not begin with blaming women or retreating from the possibility of love altogether. It starts with a profound internal shift in recognition. The first and most crucial step is to understand that love without mutual respect, an effort, is not love at all. It is a form of servitude dressed in the language of romance. The moment this truth is seen clearly, the game can no longer be played. You become aware of the rules, and thus you can refuse to follow them. Reclaiming power is a conscious process of erecting boundaries and redefining self-worth. It is the decision that your loyalty, your energy, your focus, and your resources are valuable commodities that must be earned, not given away freely out of a sense of obligation or a desperate hope for validation. This involves a transition from seeking external approval to fostering internal validation. The goal shifts from convincing someone else you are enough to building a life that you yourself find fulfilling. Rich with purpose, ambition, and personal peace. You stop being a beggar pleading at the table of relationships and become the gatekeeper of your own castle, deciding who is worthy of entry based on their actions, not their words. This path forward is not one of bitterness, but of clarity. It is a commitment to demanding balance. It means seeking a partner, not a project, an ally, not an admirer. A true partner is revealed not in the easy moments, but in their capacity for mutual sacrifice, their unwavering respect, and their demonstrable loyalty. They understand that love is not a constant euphoria, but a shared discipline or choice to build together. endure together, and prioritize the U.S. even when feelings momentarily falter. This is the standard that must be enforced. Modern love cannot exploit a man who refuses to be exploited. It cannot drain a man who is the primary source of his own validation and who recognizes that his presence in a woman's life is a gift he can revoke if it is not valued. The ultimate act of strength is to walk away from any dynamic that diminishes you, to protect your peace with the same ferocity you were once taught to protect everyone else's, and to hold out for the rare, authentic connection that offers what you have always been willing to give: true partnership.